I'm Lori Thorrat. I'm the Cataloging and Processing Manager at the Cuyahoga County Public Library. Cuyahoga County Public Library is located in Parma, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland. Let's see if I can get to my next slide. Come on, come on. Here we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about purchase suggestions. I called it boutique customer service with purchase suggestions. So you might be asking yourself, why purchase suggestions? I'm certainly some of our staff asked that question. So some of the things you get when you say purchase suggestions isn't that what interlibrary loan is for? Is it an acquisition's dream or an acquisition's nightmare? You could create a lot of work for your people. So, oh my God, why are we doing this? And, some people who spend some time on on our internet may notice that we actually have buried in there somewhere a purchase suggestion email form. So do we really need this workflow? Well, the answer to that question was yes, for a lot of reasons. So Cuyahoga County Public Library is 27 branches. We serve 47 communities. We have a service population of about 650,000 people, and about 500,000 of them are our customers. We have no main library. We are 27 branch libraries with an administrative office where we centrally manage circulation, acquisitions, cataloging, and programming. So we have a popular materials collection. We do not have that encyclopedic breadth and depth that a main library can have based upon its size. So that means we participate in two resource sharing programs in the state of Ohio. One is called Search Ohio, which is 42 libraries across the state of Ohio that partner together for an InReach catalog. And InReach is software that is through III. And the other resource sharing network was Ohio Link, which is all of the academic libraries in Ohio, which also was an InReach catalog that was serviced through Innovative Interfaces. So with these two consortia, we were borrowing, and yes, you're reading that right, 10,000 items a month for our customers. Now, here's the problem. And this is why purchase suggestions became a real issue for us. It went away and it didn't go, took my animation off. Search Ohio and Ohio Link are going away. They've actually gone away. Search Ohio Link went away at the end of May and won't come back until the end of October. And Search Ohio went away at the beginning of August and won't come back to the end of October. So the question became, how are our customers going to get those things that they want, that they, really do want, because we borrow a lot. So we knew we had this form. We knew it was a web form. It went to one person's email address. We did not want to overwhelm that one person's email box with people suggesting things, because that is basically what we settled upon doing, is that to fill the need that for stuff you can't get, you can put in a purchase suggestion, though it'll take a little bit longer than, say, a Search Ohio or a Ohio Link transaction. And we decided it was time to configure the purchase suggestion module. So the koha suggestions module, we did have a few questions. We wanted to make sure that patrons could easily access it in Aspen, because we are running Aspen as our discovery layer over Koha. And we wanted to control the flow. Okay, so sorry for that. For those of you out there and on the web, we had a little battery issue with my mic. I'm back. So we wanted to make sure that we could limit what types of materials that our customers request, because, they would request a lot of things that perhaps we can't get or don't collect. So the upshot of that. And we wanted to be able to assign the workflow. We could not continue to have all these requests come into one person's email box and say, oh, I know you have nothing better to do today, but here's 37 requests. Could you fill them all? So we wanted to be able to share the work. And what we found was, and and the last thing we wanted to make sure is, could we seamlessly create a hold and notices for customers without adding work to our acquisition staff who already have, full jobs? So the answer to all those things was yes. I was very happy that we figured that all out. I'm going to walk you through real briefly how you place a purchase request in our system, and then I'll talk a little bit about how we set it up. So like I mentioned, we are running Aspen. If you go in and currently search a title in Aspen and you don't get any results, or even if you do, if you go scroll down to the bottom of the results page, you will find that didn't find it, place a purchase, suggest a purchase. And you can also, if you log into your Aspen account, there's 2 other ways with the big yellow arrows here where you can access material suggestions through the left-hand menu and underneath your menu under your name. And just so you all know, Nathan is my son. I pick on him a lot as my test patron. You get a little form like this. You can configure this form. This is how we've chosen to configure it. We've also put a little bit of information at the top about, about purchase requests, that tells you may submit 1 a day. And if you want to do ebooks or audiobooks, we suggest you use the Notify Me and Libby because, we keep these and those in Aspen. We don't do those in Koha. So if we fill out the purchase suggestion form, and we're going to put that same title that I searched in the beginning, Taking Tea with Macintosh, we have 2 fields. We only have 2 fields that are required within the form. We opted for title and for format. And these formats, they look a little odd. This is not the same set of formats that you have in your catalog. You can define your own set of formats for this. So if we don't have a format called adult book nonfiction. I mean, we actually have a collection code and a shelving location that would define that. But for the purposes of the suggestion form, we had to create one. Often I will say customers will put in the incorrect format, but we generally like to have that format there because, if they really wanted something on a DVD, it's useful to know that. And generally those folks will select the right things. Next slide. So when you save your purchase suggestion, you get, you can see it in your account. This is a shot of what it would look like. It says, it gives you in the summary what you've suggested, what date you suggested it on, any notes if you put any notes in, and then you get a status of pending. That status remains pending actually through the life of the suggestion as far as Aspen is concerned, not as far as Koha is concerned. If we flip over and we look at Nathan's account in Koha, you can access the purchase suggestions off the left-hand menu. When you get in there, you can see the purchase suggestion, you can see the date it was requested, you can see the status is requested. You also see this funky little code that says ABNF, that's adult book nonfiction. So this is where codes come through. That's a little bit of extra work that I think, we need to do, and maybe we need to put in a ticket with Bywater to get it to actually say our collection, our type, but that's what's coming through right now. And when you flip over to acquisitions, you're like, okay, so the customer has it in there, you've got it in here, what does acquisitions sees? Well, when acquisitions opens up their main window, you've got 2 different places you can access purchase suggestions. One, it's like up there right in front of you on the right-hand side. You've got pending suggestions, click here. Or if you're in another part of the acquisitions module and you want to switch over to purchase suggestions, you can always access it off the left-hand side. When you get to this little module, purchase suggestions module, you'll notice that it has some tabs. It's set up like a spreadsheet with multiple tabs. The tabs are based on the statuses, and the tabs only appear if there's items waiting in those statuses. So the tabs kind of come and go as you build purchase suggestions, archive purchase suggestions, and so on. You can take action depending on how you want to set up your workflow, you can take real quick action right from here without even opening up the purchase suggestion by using clicking the dialog box and using your menu items down here to change statuses. The statuses that come out of the box are pending, checked, accepted, ordered, available, and rejected. Now you can create other statuses with your authorization tables, but those are the ones we actually have stuck to those. We don't use checked very often, but we use all the rest of them. Some of them are system supplied. So for example, pending is system supplied. Ordered and available are system supplied. We apply accept or rejected, and occasionally staff will come in, and if they're not sure about something, they will put it in a checked status to share it with another staff member to make sure that they've either understood the request properly or that it's okay to buy this item. If you open up the purchase request or purchase suggestion, you get, I had to split the screen here. It's really kind of one big long thing, but over there on the left, you've got your bibliographic data. You can edit anything you want here, but we tend not to. On the right is more, you can change the purchase suggestion, you can change the status of it, you can assign it to somebody, you can reject it, and when you reject it, you can assign a reason to rejecting it. You can also update some acquisition information, and again, depending on your workflow, you may or may not want to do this. If, for example, if we assign purchase suggestions to a selector, they may want to come in and say, change the fund code, set a fund code about which fund they want it to come out of. The way we've set it up is we're buying most of these out of a particular fund. So it's we don't have to go through that extra step, but that is something that you can do. You can also designate, number of copies to buy. Sometimes when customers make a purchase suggestion, you look at it and go, whoa, we missed this. And maybe we need to buy like 10 copies of this instead of just one. But that's all available there. So we're going to say here that we have accepted Nathan's suggestion. You'll notice that over in his account now, under sent notices, there's a pending notice that's going to go out to him that says, hey, you've made this purchase suggestion. It's taking tea with Macintosh. The library's reviewed it. We're going to buy it. And you can keep track of the status by clicking on your MyCCPL account. Thank you. And go from there. Over in acquisitions is where I think some of the fun really begins. So here we have a basket. I've created a basket. We're going to add purchase suggestions to this, or purchase suggestion to this basket. Within the context of our workflow right now, the way that we are doing this is most of these things are bought one-off, one copy, one suggestion. And it's through this method. If we're going to buy multiple copies, it goes through slightly different workflow. But we buy them from Amazon. So we actually have paraprofessional staff that are doing this. These are generally not going through our selectors because we're getting a fairly high volume of these. Prior to Search Ohio and Ohio Link going offline, we were getting about 15 a day. We are now getting about 24 a day. And like over a weekend, it's not unusual for us to get like 30 or 40 a day. So on a Monday. So anyhow, so here's my basket. I want to add that purchase suggestion to the basket. It's really easy to do when you open up the add order to basket. Purchase suggestion is right there. It's the second one down. When you click on that, what it does is it takes you out to that purchase suggestion module. And you'll notice now there's a little button over here on the right that says add to order. And when you click on that add to order button, it opens up a line item and it throws anything that's in the purchase suggestion into that line item. So again, your staff can edit. There's multiple places to edit. They could add an author's name if they needed to on here. They could add an ISBN if they wanted to at this point. The only things that are required, you'll see things that are, required in big red there, is the koha item type. And probably the most important thing, and it's way down here at the bottom, is you'll see that it is tied, that line item, to that purchase suggestion. And you can see that kind of all the way through the basket. So here, I've saved that line item. It's now in my basket. I can do another line item if I want to, but it still says suggested by Nathan Kosis. And what that means is if we go out to the purchase suggestion module, it means that it's now ordered by the library. It also means, where did I end up? Did I pick up the right one? It also means that, oopsie, did I order? Oops, sorry. I did, I hit the wrong arrow. It also means that if you go over to Nathan's account, he's got a hold for it. So this is now on hold for him and it's pending. And so one of the things that we decided to do with purchase suggestions is to allow our circulation module from this point forward, from once it's got a hold established, to take over sending notices. But you can, in the purchase suggestion module, configure notices. There's still additional notices that you can send to people, like when it's arrived. You can tell them it's arrived and it's available in the library, which you might want to do if you don't put holds on it for your customers. But we chose to do that. So it's there, it's on hold for Nathan, it's coming. Over in the suggestion module, you notice that the tab now that said pending is now saying ordered. If there was another pending purchase suggestion, that tab would be there too. So it's changed tabs. But over, when you compare Nathan's account in Koha to Nathan's account in Aspen, you'll notice though there's a discrepancy. It says ordered by the library in Koha, but we have chosen to keep it as pending in Aspen. And we did this for actually a reason. Oftentimes, you order stuff and it never comes in. So we didn't really want to disappoint people by telling them that, giving them false hope that they would get something that we might not get. So we left this as pending. And so that material suggestion will remain pending until it has actually arrived in the library, and then it'll be marked completed. But he will also get a notice that his hold is being filled. So that'll be the next one. So how did we figure out how to configure this, and what did we use to make some decisions? There's some really, really, really good online help. The Koha manual actually explains this pretty well. There's also some really good videos. I want to give a shout out to Jessie for her video that she did with Kelly a couple years ago that was very helpful when we looked at this. Open Fifth also has some good videos about purchasing suggestions and configuring it, and different ways you can configure it. There are system preferences that are specific for this module. So step one is you got to enable purchase suggestions. So you've got, if you go into Koha and you type in suggest and you search your Koha administration module, this pops up, which is great. But it's quite a few things. And the one that you really, really want to make sure that you do first before you start, doing other things is this last one. Here you want to enable it. That enabling turns it on, basically. You could configure all this other stuff here, but if it's not turned on, it isn't going to do anything. The other thing, the other configuration that's in there, suggestion patron category exceptions. When suggestion is enabled and a non-suggestion is disabled, follow a patron categories that are not allowed to make purchase suggestions. We don't do anonymous patron for this, so you have to be a library customer. We can't just have, we decided, since we are kind of making that effort of going out and purchasing these things, and we are making holds for individuals, that you really needed to tell us who you were. So that's why it says fully restricted. There are a couple other things in here that that are pretty important to configure, and I'm going to call those out first. They've actually got, there's actual dialogue in here where you work on a little table. One is OPAC suggestion mandatory fields, and then the other one is OPAC suggestion unwanted fields, which are these two right here. So the way that that little form works, and I don't know if you noticed that our Aspen form had far fewer fields on it than the actual Koha form did, but the Koha form has all these fields on it, and then you can go through and say, okay, so what fields do I really want on this form, and which ones don't I want? And then you can just start checking off the ones that you kind of don't want. So we really simplified the form. You see a lot of check boxes in that upper box there for OPAC suggestions, unwanted fields. We didn't want people suggesting a quantity. We didn't want we figured there, normally it's very hard to give them for customers to supply us a publisher. So we just said, heck with that. There's also a place for a reason, a patron reason, like why they want this thing. And we debated about this, but we decided ultimately we really didn't care why they wanted it. It was just that they wanted it and we were going to fill it. So we don't ask a reason, but that's a popular one, I understand, for folks who do this, who want to know why they're asking for these things. Not really, I'm not even sure we really realized what collection title was. We think that that was kind of something not necessarily related to the bibliographic record, but say a collection within your library. Don't have that, so click that one off too. The OPAC suggestion mandatory fields, we only make 2 fields mandatory, the title and that item type. And, obviously you have to have a title if you're going to have a suggestion. And the item type, again, as I mentioned earlier, we really want that because we really want to make sure that we get the right thing for you. And very often, as we have found out, as we found with even the online form, customers often suggest things we already own. And it's helpful to know whether, are you suggesting, we get this title because what you really want is the large print and we don't have that? Or are you suggesting this title and you just don't realize it's in the catalog? So we made those 2 mandatory. This last 2 settings down here are how we limit the number of things that people can actually ask for and in the time frame they can ask for it. So the first one is max open suggestions. So this says how many suggestions a patron can have open at a single time. How many that how many can you put in total for this at a time? Not how many that you're allowed per day or per month or per week, but once you have those in there, how many can be in there and be active in the system? So we set our total suggestions, which is the next one, and our total suggestions in days to 1 suggestion every day. So we figured that you could have as many as 365 open suggestions. So that's, even though that number looks huge, so far, knock on wood, we have not had anybody who puts in a suggestion every single day. Bopping back here, some of the other things that are on this list that are kind of important are that anonymous patron. That's the very first preference there. Like I said, we don't allow that. We want people to be able to, we want to be able to give that person that item. So we're buying it for you. So we don't allow the anonymous ones. The next one down is the days. The one that's kind of interesting that we did talk about turning on is the OPAC suggestion autofill, which is kind of right under that, which our max days one. This, we have it disabled, but what it does is it goes out to Google Books. It activates the Google Book API. And if the customer puts in a title, it'll go out and say, oh, is this the thing you're wanting? You know, and they'll autofill it. Now, the interesting thing about that one is that our collection development librarian really wanted her staff not to rely on Google Books, because so often that the ISBNs they get back are for editions that we didn't have, that, you know, they're newer or older or whatever, that she wanted them to actually go to the extent of searching the title and making sure that we didn't already have it in our collection, and that they weren't going to reject something because it didn't, the ISBN didn't match. So we have that turned off. You can also show the name of the staff member who manages the suggestion in the OPAC. Yeah, no. That was a hard no for us. Too many, too much email. We're not doing that. So that one's turned off. But if you, you know, I could see if you're a smaller library and you have one person assigned to these things all of the time, and that's the person that you go to, you might want that. The other one on here is whether or not you want to show, it's this third one from the bottom, purchase suggestions from other patrons in the OPAC. We chose not to do that. We value people's privacy, so we're not going to show what other people have asked for. The record is, the records that we are creating for these for orders have an item record attached to it, so they are discoverable in Aspen. And certainly we have had things where people have seen what somebody, you know, it was bought as a purchase suggestion, somebody discovers that in our catalog and they placed holds on it. So we've had purchase suggestions come in where by the time they hit cataloging, they have multiple holds on it. But we don't want to share that information with other folks. And that's really about it for that one. Some of the other Koha system preferences that you have to look at are, there's circulation policy, very important. Do you want to place a hold when a purchase suggestion, on a purchase suggestion? And of course we do, but there are reasons why you might not. So it is an option. There's also an option for logging or not logging. We tend to like to have everything logged, so we have that turned on. In acquisitions, there's some preferences regarding email. There is a way to send a notice to a staff member about a purchase suggestion. And again, this is sort of better if you only have one person managing these, or you have a centralized address that is managed through different people where you can have an email sent to somebody every time a purchase suggestion hits that table. But we don't have that turned on. And you can actually set up a timeline for purging purchase suggestions that are older than a specific date, which we figure we're going to have to do eventually, but we don't have that turned on either. Right now, we're archiving things on a monthly basis, but we expect as the table gets bigger, one of the things that we've noticed is as we've used it more, it's getting a bit slower to load. And so we're hoping that that upgrade that somebody mentioned in 2505 is going to help that. One of the ones that has perplexed us that we haven't asked about, but we think might be a dev, is that one here in the middle with the big blue arrow. That one under notices, it says fall back to SMS if no email. And we thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. We could, you know, if it doesn't send an email message to the customer, they don't have an email address, you could fall back and send an SMS message. Except actually what it's doing is it's trying to send the email message to their SMS number, and that just doesn't work. So we think that that's not quite fully it's either not fully baked or it works under very different parameters than we understand it. So we have some questions about that one. And then the last one is kind of a weird one. It has to do with cereals. We don't deal much with cereals, and we really don't take purchase suggestions for them. So we have that turned off, but you can set parameters about adding a suggestion for something that is part of a cereal record. As I mentioned, there's some authorized values you need to configure. Out of the box, you get these 4 tables if you search for suggest. The first one, OPAC suggestion, is a list of reasons to display, displayed in the suggestion form on the OPAC. And so that would be your list of reasons for why you wanted something, why a customer wanted you to buy something. We are not using that one. We are using suggest, which is a list of suggestions for accepting or rejecting a purchase suggestion. The next one is your formats. This is where you define all of your, suggest underscore formats is where you define all the formats that you're going to accept for purchase suggestion. And then the last one is if you want statuses above and beyond the 6 that come out of the box, then this is where you create them. And we don't have any of those created now. We did play around with that a little bit, but ultimately decided to opt for a more simplistic workflow. So the 2 that we've really populated are suggest and suggest underscore format. So I won't bore you with all of this, but I do want to point out in suggest that suggest is, like I said, it's your reasons for accepting or rejecting a purchase suggestion. We currently only have reasons for rejecting. We don't tell them why we're going to accept their purchase suggestion. We only tell them why we're not. And we came up, we've added to this list since we went live. We had a soft launch in May, and by July we were like, yeah, we need a couple more. So like, make a request in Libby. We added that one after the fact, and unavailable for purchase. We added that one because sometimes we just get things that are not quite fully baked from people and we just don't know what they mean. But one thing I was going to point out with it is that, you have an authorized value, a code, you have a description, a brief description, and then you have this lovely description that's called OPAC description. And we thought, which is why these are all spelled out so lovely, that description is what was going to show up in the notices, but it's not. What actually shows up in the notice when you reject it is this brief description. And that threw us for a little bit. But we figured out a way around it, thanks to Jason Bolin. I'll bring up. This is just our authorized values, if anybody wants to see our authorized values for formats. So in slips and notices, and this is how I'll explain how we got around that little kerfuffle. You get kind of out of the box, you get new suggestion, which sounds like it goes to the customer, but it's not. It's the email address that you define that's internal and that sends an email to the person in-house that says, hey, there's a new purchase suggestion, go do something with it. And accepted and rejected. And so accepted will trigger an accepted notice, rejected will trigger a rejected notice, and those are 2 that we are using. So if you look real quick at the accepted notice, it's pretty straightforward. It's got a little template here. It says, dear so-and-so, you've suggested you buy this. It takes it right from the suggestion. Library has reviewed your suggestion and it'll be ordered. If you go to rejected, things get a little weird because the way that it was originally set up, like I said, it was taking that like 2 or 3 word description as opposed to the sentence that you really want to say. So Christy reached out to Jason, who gave us this little bit of template toolkit, if then statement suggestions. And so what we did is that now it takes that brief description, which is what the form wanted, and it says, well, if you see that, if that's what's coming through, put this sentence in. So we were able to do that to customize it, and we were actually able to expand upon the information that we were going to put in from the description OPAC, from the authorized value, because that actually has a character limit of about 250 characters. This you could go on ad nauseum if you wanted. So that's what we did with that. And that's worked out actually really well. And as we add other reasons that we can't buy something for you, we just add on to the end, you know, another if-then statement. So I'm going to talk really briefly about Aspen administration, only because we are an Aspen library and we're using it. Aspen actually has 3 different ways of handling purchase suggestions. One is internal to them. One is a form. You can click out to a form. And then lastly, you can have it managed by your ILS, which is what you have to choose if you want to use purchase suggestions and Koha together. And, you know, here it is, say yes, limited by library settings. You want to make it enabled for the public, and you want to allow, we choose to allow deleting. So if somebody makes a purchase suggestion and then they decide they don't want it, we let them delete that. And then we ended up, we got into a very deep conversation about verbiage. So one of the words, one of the statuses in the Koha purchase suggestion workflow is rejected. And we just could not tell a customer that we were rejecting their request as rejected. We wanted a polite way of saying we weren't going to buy it, but without saying rejected. So we did a lot of messing around with translation tables, and that's what a lot of this is. And I've included them in case people want to look at them, and they have Aspen to change that narrative. Same thing with material suggestion. I think it was called, what was it? It was called purchase suggestion, and we made it material suggestion because that was what our old form was called. So we did go through and we did do a lot of translation work in Aspen. We do have a little, I do have kind of a little wish list of bugs that I've looked at, that I've seen that, oh, you know, and I have a couple bugs obviously that I think we need to put in to kind of beef this up. Bug 22848 is about merging purchase suggestions. That might be, that is useful. I mean, you know, like on a day that, say Oprah announces her latest book pick, if for some reason we don't have it in the catalog, as unlikely as that might be, you know, and we get 10 of them, it would be nice to be able to squish those all together. Bug 28844 is suggestion from existing title can alert patron in error, which sounds very ominous, but basically what it's saying is if a patron suggests something that's already in your catalog, it's going to tell them. And that would be very useful because that actually is our #1 reason for rejecting something, is that it's already in our catalog and people just did not find it. And the last one that I have up there that I'm kind of interested in is 35717, is link suggestions to order by adding order number to suggestion table. So when you're in the acquisitions module, you can see that something's a purchase suggestion, but getting, and you can get kind of back there, but once you get back there, you can't get back to acquisitions. This will allow you to kind of go the other direction and go from that purchase suggestion table that says, yes, I've accepted this, back into the acquisitions module to look at things. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you for paying attention this late in the day and staying awake in the dark.
You are not muted. All right, well, this is George. There are some online comments. So, and some of these came in earlier on. I've been saving them up. So, SLO County Libraries, that's San Luis Obispo. They're asking, how long does it usually take you to process a suggestion? And what part of the suggestion process do you find most challenging? And then they went on a minute or two later, they said, oh, and what part do you find the most enjoyable? What's your favorite part?
Oh, well, I think our favorite part is being able to get stuff that people want, to be honest. I mean, it has been rather interesting to see what's come through, people have asked for. At least that's my favorite part, is I like to see the part. They tend to come in batches. We are buying these chiefly from Amazon, so they come as fast as Amazon does. Sometimes that's next day. Sometimes it's, 10 days from now, but it just depends on the vendor they're getting them from. So if you get it, if we get it like on a Monday, they order every day. We have 3 staff members that work on it. They go in and they are, particularly on a Monday when we have a lot, they'll go in and they'll split up that work and they'll assign themselves a number of purchase suggestions. So if there's 30, each of them will get 10. They go out and they start looking to see whether or not they're in their catalog, where they, when Search Ohio and Ohio Link were available, could we get it via ILL? Those would be reasons for rejecting. And then we have set a purchase limit. So we don't allow them to buy anything more than $50. If it exceeds $50, they have to ask a selector to see whether or not it's, whether they want to spend that kind of money. And then they go and they buy it. And so if it's, a fairly common trade title on Amazon, like I said, next day it'd come in, it would hit the line, the cataloging line that day, and probably would be out the door the following morning. So 2-3 days tops on a good day. If it takes a long time to come in, I mean, that's the thing. The turnaround time within the library is pretty standard, because we prioritize this stuff because we know people are waiting. So it just depends really on how fast we can get it from Amazon. I think I hit everything they wanted.
I guess the other question there is, what part is most challenging? I don't think you hit that so hard.
Well, I suppose probably the most challenging thing sometimes is interpreting what they actually want. Customers have a tendency to fill out that form, they make typos, they transpose words, they select a format, but it's not even a format something is published in. And so you're kind of left going, what is it you exactly wanted? So I guess, for our folks, that's been challenging. We've had a lot of questions in the beginning about, do you think they meant this? And that was one of the reasons why we came up with a reason for rejection that said, basically, you didn't give us enough information. Can you resubmit this and tell us more? I suppose the volume has also been a little bit challenging. Like I said, when we started out, we were like 10 to 15 a day, depending on the day. And it has grown to 24 or higher a day. And that, has caused a little bit of workflow change in our acquisitions department in order to accommodate that. That's probably the biggest challenge on that right now.
You're not following up with any other.
Okay.
I'm assuming.
All right, Wally, did you have a question?
Yes, I noticed you had with Nathan, the hold was placed when he made the suggestion or whatever. What happens if you reject the purchase suggestion? What happens to the hold? Does it disappear as well?
There's no hold placed until you order. So if you reject it, there's never been a hold, there will never be a hold placed.
So it's an automation. So when you set that setting, it's an automation to place the hold once it's ordered.
Once it's ordered. Once you save it in a line item and you save that basket, you have a live hold.
Thank you.
And the thing that we really loved about that, and this is I mean, for us, we are a library that we tend to one-click everything through Baker and Taylor. We bring in these files via API. The reason we chose to actually follow this workflow instead of trying to do those one-off through API is because you cannot screw this up in terms of placing that hold for the customer. So if they have multiple cards, if they're people who have identical names, if they're, whatever, it is tied to that individual's card that they're logged into the system on. So we really like that feature. It is foolproof and seamless. The staff person that works on this doesn't have to be concerned about placing that hold.
That's a relatively new system preference in Koha. Place hold on orders from suggestions. So if you are right now thinking to yourself, boy, I wish I had known that it could place a hold when the suggestion gets ordered. But it does require you to do the suggestion all the way through acquisitions, which I know some libraries don't. They cut out, they accept the suggestion and then order it outside of acquisitions.
Right. We had actually a discussion about that in the beginning because initially our collection development librarian was kind of like, well, I don't know that I want to order these all from Amazon. But when we started going back and we started looking at the kinds of things that we get asked for purchase suggestion that she ends up ordering, we felt that actually it was a good fit. We've noticed that we have a lot of self-published stuff that comes through this way. And, Amazon is kind of the king of that right now. So just works out well.
Okay.
Who are you?
Oh, I am Fred Midstar, Washington Hospital Center, a medical library. Thank you. And thanks for the badge. I know what I want to ask. I'm not sure I can ask it in a way that makes sense. It has to do with budgeting and money. First of all, were you getting charged per interlibrary loan from Ohio Link? Okay. She's not shaking her
No,
head.
We weren't. We do pay. There is an annual membership fee for Search Ohio and Ohio Link that, obviously for the software, we pay annually for the software, but there is an additional fee that we were paying to the library that coordinates this at the state level. We're still obviously paying that because they're working on bringing up the next system. So no, we did not have a budget for this set up.
Okay. Yeah, we have sort of a rule of thumb. Figured out an interlibrary loan costs, we'll have thin air, maybe $14. If the book they're asking for costs less than $14 and it fits in our collection, we'll get it. If it does not fit in our collection, it's still less than $14, we'll just buy it and give it to them if they're a really highly respected physician. But it looks like you're ordering a lot more books now. Where is the money coming from? Did you have another book budget that you were taking it from, or do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do get what you're saying.
Good.
A lot of these books are very inexpensive. I mean, we're talking like a lot of them are $10 and under. So we're not talking a huge amount of your budget, but generally we have a very generous collection development budget, most of which goes towards electronic resources, to be honest. We buy an obscene amount of ebooks and e-audio. We just decided to because we would be down, because this is such an important, interlibrary loan is such an important service to our clientele, we felt like we had to support this. So we carved out a small chunk of money just for this. Yeah, we didn't, miracle of miracles, find a pot of money sitting around, but we did make a concerted effort to decide to set aside a little bit of money for this. And we knew coming into this fiscal year that we would have to do that because this was going to happen. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, Julia had a question back here. Sorry.
Oh, this is Juliet from Rapid City. I was just going to make a couple comments about how we use purchase suggestions for strange cases. We actually allow our patrons we ask our patrons to put their interlibrary loan requests into our purchase suggestion form. And we do that because we don't have any other way for them to make those requests. And you mentioned that checked tab. That's what our ILL people use, is once somebody who is purchasing the suggestion sees it and sees, oh, this should be ILL, they'll move it to that checked tab. And then the ILL people know to look there. We also let our selectors use the purchase suggestions a little bit how they want to. And most of them, especially the ones I trained, will order from a suggestion and then it works great, puts a hold on it. But I get people who, I have a couple selectors who don't do that. They do the adding the order separately. And so then you do have to go back and manually put the hold on for the patron and all of that. And I just noticed, I think it's in the most recent update that's coming up here, you're going to be able to mark something as available without having that order happen. So I'm kind of excited for that because now she can go through and say those items are available instead of sitting in accepted for however long they usually do.
Yeah.
Wally had a question. I'm going over to Kim. And as I walk over to Wally, I'm going to point out that if you would like to put your interlibrary loan requests into a column that's labeled interlibrary loan instead of checked, you could totally set that up. It would just be a new value, a new authorized value.
Yeah, you can.
Piggybacking a little bit on what Fred was saying, our philosophy is we're not your Amazon. So y'all are very, very generous daily. And I mean, to have, you can't make, and our patrons cannot make but one a month, one request a month. On top of that, if they're the same one, we're monitoring. So if the same person is making it over and over, because we judge, it's not automatic. We judge whether we think it will fit in our library and is going to be more than just for them. So again, y'all are very generous. How do you keep from being abused in this process?
Well, we've only been using this since May. So, and we did a very soft rollout. We did not make a lot of fanfare about this. We already had, like I said, that form. That form, the e-form, the way that e-form worked was you would put in a request and it was like sending an email into the abyss. You never heard back. You know, if we bought the thing that you suggested, you had to discover it yourself. There was no communication there. So we actually, we knew that about this workflow, and we decided that we needed, particularly since we were looking at this as a stopgap measure while our interlibrary loan services were down, that we needed to have a better use of customer service. You know, as a popular materials collection, things last in our collection 5 years or less. You know, we don't keep anything real long term. So, you know, anything that we felt like could be maybe not keeping with our own collection development policies, that's, you know, we set up, you know, for example, the video games, we eliminated that as a format. You know, the $50, we have a $50 threshold. And, you know, if something exceeds that $50 threshold, then it has to go to a selector, and a selector has to make a decision about, yes, whether this fits in the collection, whether we should afford it. Is it pertinent? some of the things that we have been asked to buy are things like workbooks, which no, we're not buying a workbook. And so we've never bought workbooks. We'll just reject that. In terms of people repeatedly asking, we haven't had too much of that yet. And I say yet, because it's only, like I said, it's only been active since May. There is a bug that I didn't highlight it here, but there is a bug that somebody has proposed that says, can you look for those? Is there a way of like isolating those? Can you set a limit on those if you find somebody who is kind of abusing it? But we really haven't had anybody go crazy. And because you have to put in a separate request, you have nobody who's attaching a bibliography. There is no, we have had people creatively try to use the form and use the note field to say, like, ask for these entire manga series. And we've ended up going back to those folks and saying, okay, great. We're happy you're interested in this. Which one do you want? So, or same thing with TV shows. I want the complete series of Dexter. Well, great. 8 seasons. Which one do you want? So we don't let them, we don't tend to buy if somebody asks for something really, really big like that. But we are a little bit less concerned about, I don't know, I guess appropriateness for the collection. Because like I said, our collection is constantly evolving and constantly changing. One of the things that we hope to gain out of this is, maybe some ideas about things where we're missing. Where customer interest has changed and we just haven't caught up with it for one reason or another. So, the acquisitions folks are spending a lot of time looking at these things, even if they're not making decisions about buying them, they are looking at them in terms of, how often they circulate and how many holds did they get on, just to see whether or not, do we have gaps?
Kim from Hotchkiss. My question is actually not for Lori directly because I don't have Aspen. I have Koha as my catalog. I really, really loved the no result page, having the link to make a suggestion, or even if I could wish it, make an interlibrary loan request.
Yeah.
I assume that is probably a jQuery. Do the gurus in the room?
I've seen it set up. I don't remember how it works, but it's doable.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe I can find that out before I leave tomorrow. That would be lovely. Thank you.
That also seems like a good bug to make it official rather than just jQuery. I'm handing the mic to Molly.
I just want to put in from a frontline perspective, we use the purchase suggestions as well. And we also use it for ILL and material requests, and then the selectors decide which one it is, because we're much smaller than you. So our collection does have to stay pretty procured, if you will, But from a frontline perspective, it's also really nice using this because then everyone has the same story. So whoever's working the desk and a patron comes up and says, what happened to my material suggestion? We can bop into Koha and we can see the step-by-step, like, oh, I see Donna managed it and she rejected it for this reason. And then we can help the patron find it somewhere else or tell them they'll have to go to Amazon.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just plug in it's cool.
It is cool.
Use it.
Use it.
So there is one more question. I told them they've already asked. Well, was there anybody else have any questions?
I didn't see it.
Okay, so San Luis Obispo has another question. They say, who does the tracking for suggestions from order to shelf? Is it assigned? Is it the assigned member I assume the assigned member in Koha, or somebody from your collection development team? I guess they want more explication on how that works.
Okay, so I'll give you the quick tour of our collection development, acquisitions, cataloging and processing areas. So somebody places a purchase suggestion, it's sitting there in Koha. every day we have 3 acquisitions assistants. Every day, one of them is assigned to go in and work on purchase suggestions. On Mondays, because it's over the weekend and because the volume has increased, they are now splitting that work up. And sometimes even on other days when we get enough suggestions that it exceeds something reasonable, they're splitting that work up too. But there's always at least somebody working on it. So somebody comes in, they take that purchase suggestion, they check it in Amazon, they make a decision about, they look for it in our catalog, they make some decisions about whether or not we're going to buy it or not based upon the guidelines they've been given. If they choose to go ahead and buy it, that goes out and it places an order. Once the order is out there in the pipeline, it's received in acquisitions like anything else. It comes in the back door, somebody opens the bag, they, process the invoice. We use a tracking slip for all of our acquisitions materials. So there's a little slip of paper that kind of goes in it that says, what it is, where it came from, who it's for, that kind of thing. And it gets put on a cart for cataloging, and it's marked as a priority because it's a purchase suggestion. Our cataloging staff, different people, come and pick that book up. They create a record for it, and they'll attach the item or reconfigure the existing item so that it conforms to what it is and has barcode and what it needs, and produce a label. That label and the book and the paperwork then go to our processing department. The processors attach the labels, make it ready for circulating in the branch, and then it gets routed out where the hold is trapped for the customer. And at that point in time, the customer will get a notice that this will be, this is in transit to you. It'll be available for pickup, at that point in time. And it goes off its merry little way through sorting and to the branches. So we don't have, it's a lot of people that work on these. It's never just one. The way that we felt that it had the least impact, the least impact on the workflow in acquisitions is if we could make it most acquisition-like after the point in which it was ordered. So that it couldn't, we weren't creating a separate workflow for receiving. It was a different workflow for ordering, but after it hit the back door there, it just kind of moves through the process like any other high priority thing for us. Does that make sense?
This is Andrew inserting some wisdom on behalf of Jason, who didn't want to talk. But he whispered to me to remind me that there's a system preference called OPAC no results found. That is one of those open spaces in which to put HTML. You put some HTML in there and it puts that on the screen when you have a no result search in the OPAC. So just put a link in there to your suggestion form. Someday that will probably become an HTML customization.
So
I'm bringing the mic over to Joseph.
San Luis Obispo said yes.
Oh, good. Tell them that, and tell them if they want to, please email me if you have any more questions. I'm happy to share our actual workflow, our procedures. Okay, good.
Hey there. So actually, I think you might have just answered my question, but I'm just going to throw this out here. So we do not use Aspen. We use, for our OPAC, it's just the straight up by water Koha catalog. Does anyone know if this module is available for that as well?
It's actually based.
It's based, okay, so what Aspen is using is based on that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for the HTML tip there.
That was Jason, really.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Jason.
I'm looking at my phone.
Yeah.
This is Juliet again. We don't have anything in our OPAC no results found, but our OPAC shows not finding what you're looking for, make a purchase suggestion. So I'm not sure if that's already built in or
Seems like.
It doesn't come by default.
So the way you want to test this is you just want to put something in that preference and reload that page and see where it appears.
Yeah, where it goes.
And I meant.
There's nothing in there.
I would bet you $1 that once upon a time there was no default content there and you needed to put something in the preference. And then some clever person said, why don't we make some default values here? And now it does that by default if you don't have anything in the system preference. But, you know, we can play around with that later. Does anybody else have questions?
Any more questions?
Juliet and George are having a thing. Thank you, Lori. Thank you all. This concludes day 3. I don't know, Thursday. This concludes Thursday. See you tomorrow for Friday. Thank you.